Hi, welcome to the Dreamy Physicist. I'm so glad you're here. Let the weight of the day slide from your shoulders. Feel the softness beneath your back, the calm steadiness beneath your head. This is your resting place, and you are safe here. Now, breathe in, slow and gentle, and let it go, even slower. With each breath, you enter deeper into the quiet rhythm of your own body. And within that rhythm, something moves. Not your lungs, not your heart, but something subtler, something often forgotten. Inside your spine, an ocean stirs. Not a poetic ocean, a real one. A clear, shimmering tide that moves through the center of you. It's called cerebrospinal fluid, a crystalline bath surrounding your brain and gently cradling your spinal cord. It flows through the hollow spaces of your spine and skull, a secret current that rises and falls with every breath you take. Inhale, the tide lifts. Exhale, the tide returns. This ocean inside you cushions the most delicate parts of your nervous system. It removes waste, carries nutrients, and helps your brain and spine feel held. It is motion without sound, vitality without demand, and in its depths floats your spinal cord, a ribbon of nerves, coiled like a silver rope, delicate yet powerful, protected by bone, bathed in fluid. Most people picture the spine as rigid, just a column of vertebrae. But that's just the armor. The real magic happens inside. The spinal cord is your body's central cable, a channel for signals, a conduit for light speed messages, traveling between your brain and the rest of you. When your fingers brush fabric, when your foot meets cold water, when your lips curl into a smile, the command and the sensation race through this cord. Tiny electrical pulses, fired from neuron to neuron, like Morse code in your own language. Not jolts, not shocks, but soft bursts of knowing passed along a living wire. It's as if your body has its own poetry, written in current and chemical. The spine reads and writes it without you ever asking. But it's more than a messenger. It's also a thinker. Quiet one. Within the spinal cord, live reflex circuits, small loops of neurons that make decisions without ever troubling your brain. You touch something sharp, your hand pulls back before you're even aware. The spine acted for you, shielding you quicker than thought. These reflexes are your body's ancient instincts, etched deep into the spinal cord's loops. But the spine doesn't only act in emergencies. It also coordinates. When you walk, when you sway, when you lie still, and feel the gentle stretch of your back as you breathe. That's your spine working too, adjusting posture, balancing tension, orchestrating the dance of muscles. Even now, as you rest, it listens, adjusting the angle of your pelvis, loosening the muscles in your neck, quieting the hum of the day. And around it all, the cerebrospinal fluid rocks gently. It's not still, it circulates, from brain to spine and back, driven by your heartbeat, your breath, and even the rhythm of sleep. When you enter deep sleep, something amazing happens. The flow of cerebrospinal fluid increases. It flushes through your brain like a tide, rinsing away waste, clearing byproducts of thought, cooling and soothing your neurons. Some scientists call it a nighttime washing, but it's more than cleaning. It's restoration. It's care. Your body knows how to tend to itself if you let it. And the breath is the key. Slow, deep breathing gently rocks the tide, inviting the fluid to move in long, graceful waves. As the tide flows, it nourishes the spinal cord and brings a calmness to your whole system. That's why breath work, why meditation, why slow moments of stillness can feel like balm. They are not just psychological, they are physical. They change the tides inside you. Your spine listens, and the fluid responds. This ocean inside you connects to something else too, a great highway of nerves, branching out from the spinal cord like rivers from a mountain spring. Every vertebra gives rise to nerve roots, pairs of messengers who travel outward to every corner of your body. One goes out with motor commands, the other returns with sensation. They speak constantly, even now, telling your spine how your toes feel, telling your toes how to stretch and rest. Each nerve knows its place. Each branch finds its destination, like roots seeking water. Your body is mapped by this hidden network, and the map begins at your spine. So when you feel calm in your chest, or warmth in your hands, or softness in your thighs, as you drift, remember, those messages travel through the cord, through fluid, through breath. Everything is connected. This is not just structure, it is story. A story told in pulses, in movement, in tides. And it begins with your spine, the bridge between the physical and the perceptual. And as we leave this quiet ocean for the next still shore, another question arises in the soft dark. If the spinal cord speaks through pulses and waves, who listens to the feeling of safety deep inside your chest? There is someone, a long, wandering nerve that wraps around your heart, stretches into your lungs, and cradles your gut. Next, we'll follow its path and learn how your body listens inward through the whisper beneath your ribs, beneath your skin, deeper than the rise and fall of breath, lives an electric forest, a quiet sparkscape, woven not from branches, but from cells shaped like trees, stretching and reaching toward meaning. Neurons, the little sparks of self. They are not loud. They do not roar like the pulse or thump like the heart. They do not shine like stars, but they flicker, billions at a time, in the silent language of your body's knowing. They flicker when you remember. They flicker when you speak, when you feel warmth or sadness, or the brush of your sleeve. You are a galaxy made not of planets, but of pulses, and neurons are your shining messengers. Each one, a shape like a delicate root, with arms called dendrites, listening branches that reach outward into the space between, and from its core extends the axon, a long, single thread carrying whispers away toward the next waiting cell. They never touch, but between the gaps, called synapses, Your life leaps in that tiny space. Chemicals flow like rivers, neurotransmitters, moving from one cell to another like a secret pass in a crowd without a sound. Dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, each one a soft messenger, a chemical note delivered with exquisite care. And when it lands, the next neuron lights up as if it remembers how to respond. This is how you feel the world. This is how your fingertips know the difference between silk and stone. How your mind recalls a name you thought forgotten. How your heart quickens at the sound of someone you love. Tiny cells, electric and small. Yet from them comes your entire sense of self. Your brain alone holds roughly 86 billion neurons. 86 billion. And though they are silent, their pattern is symphonic. You don't hear it, but you live it. When a thought forms, it isn't a sentence in your head. It's a network of sparks, neuron to neuron, passing fire in rhythm. The thought is the rhythm, and these rhythms build maps, neural maps, curious paths that tell your body how to move, when to blink, when to grieve. These pathways aren't fixed. They bend, they shift, they change as you learn, as you sleep, as you heal. This is called neuroplasticity, the brain's soft, malleable gift. Your brain is not made of stone. It is made of stream beds that reroute themselves when needed. When you learn something new, neurons stretch out toward one another like hands in the dark, finding connection. And when they connect often enough, they remember the path. They carve it into place. So practice in the mind is a physical act. You rehearse a motion, a thought, a kindness, and your neurons rewire bit by bit, quietly toward that new future. But just as they build, they also let go. Unused connections fade, like trails in the forest, overgrown with moss. This is not loss. It is refinement. The brain is always pruning, always shaping itself toward clarity. Even in rest, neurons work, especially in dreams. During sleep, the brain replays its songs, rehearses memories, balances emotion, organizes the chaos of the waking world. You think you are doing nothing, but your neurons are painting meaning behind closed eyes. Some neurons never sleep. The autonomic ones, deep in the brainstem, keep your lungs rising and your heart softly drumming while you rest. Others hold your breath when danger nears, or release endorphins when comfort returns. Still others, in the cerebral cortex, light up with thought, language, imagination, curiosity, and creativity. Your imagination has a physical shape, the very wonder you feel now that you are made of silent lightning is being lit by the thing you're wondering about. What a strange, looping magic. But there is more. Some neurons stretch through your spine into your limbs, commanding your hands, your knees, your fingertips. Others lie within your gut, your second brain, as scientists say. Yes, your digestive tract has its own neural network, the enteric nervous system, hundreds of millions of neurons wrapped around your stomach. your intestines. It senses, it reacts, it communicates with your mind above and your body below. The gut feels, not metaphorically, but biologically. It informs mood, motivation, even decisions. You feel fear in your belly because neurons are there to feel it. Neurons also carry memory, not like a photograph, but like a constellation. No single neuron holds a whole moment, but together, a group of them can light up like a memory lantern. You think of your mother's voice, and that thought isn't one place, it's 1,000 sparks across language, sound, emotion, smell, face, time. Neurons are not alone. They are supported by glial cells, the silent guardians, feeding, repairing, and clearing waste so the signals flow freely. Without them, neurons would flicker out. Together, they form your entire experience. The smell of rain, the ache of a bruise, the way your name sounds when spoken by someone you miss. And still, you barely notice them. They are not offended. They are too busy being you. And tonight, as you rest, those little sparks continue. Even now, they carry the soft hum of the world inside, the rhythm of your breath, the ache you're slowly healing, the memory you forgot. But your neurons still quietly keep. They are you. But they are not fixed. They change with time. They whisper with every choice. And they await what comes next. Because just beyond neurons, past the sparks and branches, lies something even more silent, a network that doesn't speak in voltage or touch, but in the language of stillness. And that's where we go next, to the wide and wondrous world of glial cells, the quiet caretakers of your electric self. There are stars in your mind that do not shine. They do not speak, do not send their fire across the synaptic seas. They do not carry your thoughts, or your breath, or your joy. And yet, they make it all possible. They are the ones behind the curtain, the caretakers, the listeners, the quiet ones who do not wish to be known, but who shape the entire story just the same. Glial cells, named for glia, the ancient Greek word for glue, as if they were only what held the real actors in place. But we now know better. They are not glue. They are the symphony hall itself, the acoustics, the temperature, the silent hands that tune the instruments before the music begins. For every neuron, there may be at least one or several glia quietly nearby. And though they make no sound, their silence is not emptiness. It is precision. It is care. Imagine the neurons as lightning across a dark sky, sharp, crackling, bright. Glial cells are the clouds, the air, the moisture in the wind, the space that lets the storm breathe without collapse. There are many kinds. Some stand guard, some clean up, some feed, some guide, and some do all of these at once, shifting forms, like caretakers of a dreaming forest. Astrocytes, the stars of this silent world. They stretch wide, star-shaped, their arms touching neuron after neuron, not to send a signal, but to listen to what must be done. They watch for hunger. They ferry nutrients from blood vessels to the neurons that need them. They keep the chemical balance of your brain steady and safe. Too much calcium? Too little potassium? They adjust like soft-handed alchemists. They even shape the synapse, the space between. They decide, sometimes, how strong that connection should be, when to hold on, when to let go. You don't choose this, but they do, and they are always listening. They may even whisper, not with electricity, but with waves of calcium passing through themselves in long, rippling pulses, like wind across still water. And those ripples influence the neurons near them, not commands, but context, mood, tone, as if the astrocytes set the stage on which the neurons dance. Then there are the oligodendrocytes. Their name is long, but their task is elegant. They wrap, they build the insulation around axons, that long thread-like part of a neuron that carries messages forward. You've heard of this wrapping, myelin, a fatty sheath that speeds up electrical travel, like coating a wire so it hums without loss. Without myelin, your thoughts would stumble, signals would crawl. You might try to move your hand, and it would delay or never arrive at all. Multiple sclerosis, for example, is a disease of lost myelin, and so the oligodendrocytes do not speak. They build coats so that others may shout across space without faltering. There are seamstresses of speed. Then there are the microglia, tiny, watchful, and fierce. They are your brain's immune sentinels, always scanning, floating through the tissue, searching for intruders, bacteria, viruses, cellular waste. When they find trouble, they change. They shift their shape. They rush in. They consume what does not belong. They clear the battlefield before you even know you are under attack. But they do not only fight, they prune. As the brain develops, it overgrows. Connections bloom in excess. And then, with care, microglia come to clip the extra threads, not at random, but with discernment. They remove what is no longer needed, what hasn't been used, what would only slow the song. This sculpting shapes your thoughts as surely as any learning. They are gardeners of the mind's wild landscape, and glial cells do not stop. When the brain stops growing, they continue through life, through aging, through stress, through every moment you believe yourself to be alone. They are still there, holding everything in balance. But why do they matter so much to a mind that craves fire? Because without the silence, the sparks would be chaos. Without glia, neurons would overheat, become poisoned, collide. Without glia, your thoughts could never sharpen. Memories would never refine. Learning would stagnate. They are the custodians of clarity. And recently, scientists began to suspect something more. That glial cells may not be just helpers, but players too. They may influence how we feel, what we remember, whether we wake or stay asleep. Some experiments suggest that astrocytes can trigger slow-wave sleep, the deep, restoring kind. Others hint that microglia play roles in depression, in healing and after trauma. These cells, once thought passive, may be deeply emotional in their silent way, and this opens a deeper mystery. What if the music of the brain is not only the melody of neuron to neuron, but also the harmony of glia to everything? What if thinking is not a line, but a field? Not a spark, but a symphony? And what if the deepest parts of you, the ones that feel without words, that ache or calm without knowing why, are shaped by these silent caretakers? Perhaps there is intelligence in the quiet. Perhaps awareness is not only found in flashes of thought, but in the soft arrangement of everything that holds thought together. Tonight, as your mind drifts, glial cells are still at work, rebalancing, feeding, adjusting the stage so the next dreams can arrive. They do not dream themselves, but they make dreaming possible. They do not remember, but they preserve the path where memory can walk. They are the silence between the notes that makes the song worth hearing. And in this silence, another question rises. If neurons and glia shape the brain, then who are you when the brain is damaged, when a piece goes missing, when memory frays, or sense shifts? Where is the you when the brain changes? We go next into the mystery of identity inside a mind that forgets. Beneath the dreaming folds of your soft, thinking brain, beneath the whorls of memory, emotion, and story, there lies something older, something quieter, something that never stops to ask who you are. It only keeps you alive. The brainstem. It does not daydream. It does not compose music, nor solve riddles, nor whisper about love and longing. It does not care what you believe. It does not wonder who you'll become. It is not you, but without it, you wouldn't be here to wonder at all. The brainstem is small, humble, really, tucked at the base of the brain, where it connects to the spine like a root system hidden under a vast tree. It is ancient, from deep time, a remnant of the nervous systems our ancestors carried before they had names, or fire, or fingers to point at stars. And yet, this tiny column of tissue watches over you every hour, every second. Breath, pulse, blood pressure, sleep, swallowing, waking. It is not the conductor of your consciousness. It is the drumbeat underneath. It keeps time even when the orchestra forgets how to play. The brainstem is made of three parts: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Each has its rhythms. Each has its task, but they blur together, a woven braid of life's insistence. Let's begin with the medulla, at the very base, just above your spine. This is your life's heartbeat. The medulla monitors how much carbon dioxide is in your blood. If it rises, your breathing changes, not because you think to do so, but because the medulla knows you must. It controls the muscles that allow you to breathe. It watches your heartbeat with steady attention. If the rate slows too much or rises too high, it adjusts, whispering commands through nerves to the heart itself. No ego, no fear, just pattern, adjustment, pattern. It controls swallowing, vomiting, sneezing, and coughing, all things you cannot do well without it. Even as you sleep, the medulla listens. When dreams make you still, it keeps the breath moving. It is the keeper of the basic yes. Yeah. You are alive. Above that, the pons, whose name means bridge, and it is a bridge between your body and your higher brain, between movement and intention, between sensation and interpretation. It contains the switchboard for your facial expressions. It moves your eyes, your lips, your brow. It allows you to chew, to blink, to smile, without thinking. The pons plays a secret role in dreaming too, during REM sleep when your mind runs wild, but your body remains still. It is the pons that keeps your muscles paralyzed so your dreams don't spill into motion. It gates the dream. It separates thought from action. It protects you from acting out the impossible things your mind invents each night. It is the stillness inside your storms. And then the midbrain, a watchtower for the senses. It tracks light. It tracks sound. It turns your head toward a sudden flash or a sharp noise before you even realize you've moved. It is the reflex, the instinct, the guardian of awareness before awareness arrives. In animals, the midbrain can be a center for visual processing, movement, and basic attention. In you, it's part of a larger map, but still vital, still ancient, still fast. It is a lantern held high in the forest of the nervous system, watching for danger long before fear has found its name. Together, these three form the core that holds you steady in a world that constantly changes. Your thoughts may wander, your feelings may shift like weather, but the brainstem stays, even in coma, even in anesthesia, even when your mind is nowhere to be found. The brainstem waits. Doctors know this with solemn clarity. When a person is brain dead, it is the brainstem they test, not memories, not thoughts, but breath, reflex, the pupillary response to light. If the brainstem is gone, there is no rhythm left for the body to follow. This is the strange truth. The most primitive part of you is also the most loyal. It does not grow tired. It does not complain. It simply serves without applause. Think of it this way. The cortex, that vast wrinkled terrain above the brainstem, is like a city, bustling, creative, complex. The brainstem is the countryside, older, slower, but it grows the food. It keeps the power flowing. It clears the roads when they flood. No matter what story you tell yourself, no matter what dream you chase, the brainstem keeps watch in silence. There's a tenderness in that, a kind of devotion you didn't choose, but benefit from every day. When you hold your breath for a moment, it is the brainstem that gently insists, no, not yet. We must go on. When you sleep so deeply you forget your name, it breathes for you still. When you cry, your heartbeat rises. When you laugh, your breath comes in waves. And always, the brainstem is there, adjusting, balancing, holding you steady through joy, through grief, through everything in between. And perhaps this is the strange paradox of being human, that the parts of us we think are most ours, our memories, our loves, our thoughts, can disappear, fade, change. But the parts we never notice, never thank, never feel proud of, are the ones that love us most unconditionally. So tonight, as your mind slows and your breath softens, the brainstem keeps watch, as it always has, like a lighthouse whose keeper never leaves, like an ancient song whose melody you never hear, but whose rhythm keeps your body swaying until the dream returns. And when that dream comes, you'll drift once more into deeper mysteries. How does memory begin? Where do impressions go when they first enter the brain? Next, we will walk the winding path into the hippocampus, the brain's inner archivist, and the whispering home of remembered things. There is something moving through you, even now. Not blood, not breath, not thought. A hum, flicker, a pulse. It travels in silence, but it is not still. It has no color, but it paints your waking world. It is electricity in the dark. You cannot feel it directly, but it feels you. Every blink, every heartbeat, every word you almost speak. It begins with the softest current firing through the living wires of your nervous system. You are not a machine, but something in you runs on charge, a quiet spark in a wilderness of cells. This is how neurons speak, not in words or language or logic, but in flashes, in surges, in waves of voltage that travel from cell to cell like messages carried through a storm. Picture a single neuron, slender, branching, reaching. It sits in the dark, surrounded by fluid, as all brain cells are. It has a long tail, an axon, and delicate arms, called dendrites, waiting to receive the next electric whisper. The neuron waits. It does not act until the moment comes. When it does, something strange happens. The inside of the cell shifts. Ions rush in. Threshold is crossed, and suddenly the neuron fires. An electrical impulse races down its axon at incredible speed. One flash, then stillness. That flash is called an action potential. It is the single heartbeat of thought. But where does this electricity come from? Not from wires, not from batteries, not from plugs in a wall. It comes from imbalance, from the way ions, tiny charged particles, are kept unevenly on either side of a cell membrane. Potassium inside, sodium outside, like a river behind a dam. And then, when a signal comes, the gates open. Sodium floods in, shifting the cell's charge, creating a domino of voltage down the axon. And as the wave moves forward, behind it, channels open to let potassium out, restoring balance. The cell resets, ready to fire again. It is a dance of chemistry and timing, rhythm older than thought. This electrical signal can travel astonishing distances. Some axons are over a meter long, from spine to toe, from brain to hand. Each neuron is microscopic, but together their pulses form you. The flash of recognition, the pull of memory, the twitch in your finger, the breath before sleep. It is all electricity in the dark, but neurons don't touch. Not exactly. There is a gap between them, the synapse. When the electrical signal reaches the end of the axon, it cannot jump that gap as electricity alone. Instead, the signal transforms. Tiny sacs in the neuron's terminal burst open, releasing molecules into the space between. These molecules are neurotransmitters, messengers, bridges, keys. They float across the synapse and bind to the next neuron, causing it to shift, to open, to fire. And just like that, the message continues from neuron to neuron, across circuits, across networks, across you. Some neurotransmitters excite, others calm, some enhance memory, others shape mood. Dopamine, serotonin, GABA, acetylcholine, glutamate, each one a different note in the quiet symphony of the brain. And all of it, every thought you have, is built from this, a whisper of charge, a gap, a chemical bridge, a new spark. Sometimes the electricity becomes visible at scale. When groups of neurons fire together, their rhythms can be traced. Doctors use EEGs, electroencephalograms, to measure the waves of voltage that ripple across the skull. Beta waves, alpha, theta, delta, each wave a different kind of brain state. Alert, calm, drowsy, deep sleep. It is your electrical weather, changing, moving, never still. And still, inside each wave are millions of tiny storms. There's something humbling about this, that behind your joy, behind your sorrow, behind the words you speak and the ones you swallow, there are pulses in darkness, flicker of ions rushing across a membrane no thicker than a shadow. And that flicker means love, or fear, or an idea you've never had before. This, then, is the mystery. Not that the brain uses electricity, but that electricity can become a feeling. That ions can become intention. That voltage can learn to dream. And yet, this system is not perfect. Sometimes the charge goes awry. In epilepsy, a sudden storm of electrical activity sweeps across the brain, uncontrolled. The balance between excitation and inhibition fails, and the result is seizure, collapse, sudden shattering of the usual rhythm. Still, within the chaos, there's knowledge. Scientists learn from these events, mapping how the brain regulates charge, how it repairs, how it tries to restore peace. Sometimes, electricity is not just observed, but applied. Deep brain stimulation uses tiny electrical impulses delivered through implants to treat conditions like Parkinson's, depression, even chronic pain. Electricity heals. It calms. It changes lives. We learn, slowly, to speak its language. to write with its alphabet, to comfort the cells that speak in sparks. And all of this unfolds without your knowing, while you walk, while you read, while you sit beneath stars and wonder why the night feels so endless. Even now, as you listen, your neurons fire. Thousands, millions, more. A cascade of unseen lightning spreading through your brain, not to destroy, but to connect, to remember, to understand, to drift. Electricity is not you, but without it, there is no you. Behold the thought. It is the flicker in the forest, the glint of gold beneath the soil. You are more than the sparks, but they are part of you and always have been. Even before you had a name, even before you opened your eyes. And as you slip into rest tonight, remember this, that something in you keeps glowing, even in the dark. And in that glow is a question still forming. What happens when the sparks align? When charge becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes memory? Next, we follow the pattern into a deeper layer where electricity sculpts identity and memory learns to hold the shape of time. Not all who dwell in the brain speak in sparks. Not all fire or flash or blaze across the dark. Some live softly. They do not shine, but they keep the lights on. They do not speak, but they carry the silence. They are not neurons. They are glia, and they are everywhere. For so long, they were forgotten, overlooked. The quiet shapes between the stars of the neural sky. Scientists, for decades, called them glue, named them after stillness, believed them to be filler, structural, passive. But glia are not silent passengers. They are the caretakers, the gardeners, the watchful souls that shape the neuron stage. You would not be you without them. Imagine walking into a concert hall, the violins tuned, the lights dimmed, the air trembling with music. Now imagine the janitor who made it clean, technician who adjusted the sound, the usher who opened the door just in time. Without them, the music collapses. That is glia, the invisible support of the mind's orchestra. There are many kinds, each with a different task, each with a name, like a whisper. Astrocytes, shaped like stars. They cradle neurons, wrapping around synapses, guiding their formation. They nourish, they balance, they sip excess neurotransmitters to prevent chaos. They regulate blood flow, adjust ion levels, maintain peace. They are the brain's steady breath. Then come the oligodendrocytes, a word like tangled roots, but their role is sleek and bright. They make myelin, the insulation that wraps around axons, allowing electrical signals to travel faster, with purpose, with clarity. Without them, neural messages crawl. With them, they fly. A single oligodendrocyte can reach out like a tree and wrap around dozens of neurons, speeding the fire across the forest. And then there are the microglia, all vigilant, wandering. They are the brain's immune system, not passive, but fierce when needed. They patrol. They seek damage. They devour what does not belong. In development, they prune the brain, cutting away excess synapses so the right ones can bloom. They are sculptors in the storm. Even more glial cells line the brain's ventricles, ependymal cells, forming barriers and moving cerebrospinal fluid like gentle waves across the shores of the brain. Each type quiet in its own way, each vital, each part of the whispering chorus that holds thought in place. And yet, they do not act alone. Glia respond to the patterns of neurons, to their flickers, to their rhythms in neuron fires, and glia gather. They shift, they signal, not with electricity, but with calcium waves, pulses of lightless motion that ripple between them. It is a language just beneath what we understand. Some call it a hidden code. Others say it is a dance, too complex to hear with human ears. But still, they move. They help. They always help. There are more glial cells in your brain than neurons. Perhaps 3 to 1, perhaps more. That is not background. That is structure. That is intention. That is the mind with scaffolding, thought with shelter. In development, glia guide growing neurons like hands beneath water. They tell them where to go, when to stop, how to connect. In adulthood, they repair. They clear debris after injury. They protect on disease. They even hold memory in ways we are only beginning to glimpse. Some studies suggest that astrocytes can influence plasticity, the brain's ability to change, to grow, to heal. Others show glia involved in sleep, regulating rest, cleaning waste, while dreams unfold. Even now, as you lie still, they work, they clean, they restore. Glia do not ask for attention. They do not glow on brain scans. They do not light up when you speak or feel or solve a puzzle. But they are there, beneath, around, within, like roots in fertile soil, like the frame of a house you never notice. They are what allows neurons to shine. And in their quietness is a wisdom of another kind. And perhaps that is the lesson, that not all who matter speak loudly, that the brain, for all its brilliance, is nothing without its background, without those who clean and hold and wait, the helpers, the watchers, the ones who make connection possible. When glia falter, the mind stumbles. In diseases like multiple sclerosis, the myelin sheath created by oligodendrocytes is attacked. Signals slow, movement falters, clarity dissolves. In Alzheimer's, astrocytes and microglia react to damage, but sometimes too much. Their attempts to heal become fire. And yet, in this too, there is learning, understanding, the chance to better know what it means to be whole. Glia do not demand to be noticed, but maybe tonight, as you lie quiet, you can imagine them. Tiny star-shaped cells cradling the thoughts you do not yet think. Waves of quiet motion spreading through your brain, like a tide that never reaches shore, a network built not from fire, but from patience, from stillness, from care. So often, we admire the light, the neurons flash, the bold burst of thought. But in truth, you are also made of shadows, of quiet scaffolds, of invisible repair. The brain is not just what thinks, it is what holds the thinker. And glia, these silent architects, remind us that the mind is not only a spark, it is also a shelter. Imagine a single thought, a flicker in the dark, a signal born in silence that wishes to be heard. It needs to travel, to reach the farthest edges of your body, from the brain's quiet center to your fingertips, your toes, your lungs that rise and fall without a word. But thoughts are slow when they must swim alone. A bare signal, unprotected, crawls along the neuron like a whisper in fog. What changes that? What turns a sluggish ripple into a sprint through the nervous sea? Wrapping a sheath, a silent spiral called myelin. You do not feel it form, but it begins before you are born. Cell by cell, thread by thread, this strange, fatty envelope grows around the axons of your neurons. It does not flash, it does not fire, but it transforms. It is the difference between walking and soaring, the difference between hesitation and grace, like the insulation around a copper wire. Myelin wraps your thoughts in speed. It allows signals to leap, not flow smoothly, but jump from node to node in sudden surges called saltatory conduction. Saltari, to dance. Your brain is dancing on pathways of wrapped light. Who makes myelin? Not the neurons themselves. They are too busy being bright. No, the wrappers are glia. Once again, in your brain and spine, they are called oligodendrocytes, cells with many arms, reaching like branches to embrace many axons at once. And in your peripheral nerves, the ones that stretch through limbs and organs, the makers are Schwann cells, each devoted to a single axon, spinning myelin like silk. Two artists, one purpose, speed through structure. Myelin is not uniform. It grows in rings, layer upon layer of lipid-rich wrapping, coils around the axon, like a sleeping spiral. But it does not cover everything. It leaves gaps, tiny naked spaces called nodes of Ranvier. Strangely, these gaps are what make speed possible, because at each node, the electrical signal regenerates, reignites, springs forward again. In these gaps, the neuron breathes, pauses, pushes onward, a leap of light, a skip of fire. And that is why you can catch a falling glass before it shatters, why you can pull your hand from heat before pain becomes a memory, why you can speak, laugh, run, think in rhythm. Without myelin, your thoughts would feel like molasses, slow, unsteady. With it, you are fast without even trying. But the story of myelin is not just about speed, it is also about timing. because even the fastest signal is useless if it arrives too early or too late. Thoughts must be synchronized like an orchestra, each section playing just when needed. And so, myelin adapts. It thickens on the axons that must move fast. It changes as you learn, as you grow. It is not fixed. It listens. It learns. Some scientists believe that learning itself triggers more myelin, that as you practice, your neurons are not just firing, they're being insulated. You are wrapping knowledge into structure, but myelin can be lost. And when it is, the mind trembles. In multiple sclerosis, the immune system turns against myelin. Oligodendrocytes are attacked. Axons are stripped. Signals falter. A thought that once flew becomes uncertain. Motion becomes hesitation. Speech becomes struggle. There is no explosion, no shattering, only disconnection, only delay. The brain knows what it wants, but cannot always send it there. And yet, myelin can return. Under the right conditions, remyelination is possible. Healing is slow, but not impossible. Even in the aging brain, myelin wears thin. The signal's speed softens. Processing slows. But it's not decay alone. It's life. Every memory you've made rides on these wrapped wires. Every emotion you've expressed took that journey beneath myelin's embrace. It is not just speed. It is the architecture of communication itself, a spiral around thought. In development, myelin comes late. The brain's wrapping is slow and patient. It begins deep in the brainstem and spinal cord and stretches outward over years. In fact, some of your neurons aren't fully myelinated until your mid-20s. Perhaps that's why adolescence feels like static, a time when signals are searching for their smoothest route. And in that late wrapping is a kind of wisdom, a slow maturation of self. You do not notice myelin, but every time you finish a sentence without stuttering, catch a ball without thinking, recall a name before silence stretches, you are using its quiet gift. It is the difference between scattered fire and direction, between spark and signal. Your neurons are roads, but myelin is the pavement. Your thoughts are whispers, but myelin is the wind that carries them. Without it, you would still be a mind, but a slower one, flicker, with nowhere to go. With it, you are speed without noise, light with purpose. And isn't that what all messages seek? Not just to exist, but to arrive, to land, to be received. In the spiral arms of myelin, a thought becomes not just real, but reachable. And that is how you know you are alive. There are moments when the world enters you without asking. A breeze grazes your cheek. A thread slips between your fingers. A sudden pinch, a soft kiss, a pebble in your shoe. You know, not because you see, not because you think, but because your body feels. Touch is not one sense. It is many voices in a choir beneath your skin. When you touch the world, you are touched in return. The boundary of self and not self becomes thin. A door opens in your fingertips, your shoulders, your spine. It begins in your skin, that thin electric fabric that wraps you whole. Beneath it, like hidden roots or receptors, each one a different kind of listener. Some are tuned to pressure, some to temperature, some to pain. Some respond only when the contact is fleeting. Others speak only if it lingers. You carry 1,000 listening devices just beneath the surface of your being, and yet you do not hear them as noise. You feel them as presence. There is a receptor called the miracle disc that feels the shape of coins in your palm. There is one called the Meissner corpuscle that notices the brush cotton on your wrist. The Pacinian corpuscles live deeper, like submarines, detecting vibrations in the bones. The Ruffini endings sense stretch, how your skin pulls as you turn, as you move. You don't think about them, but they think about you constantly. When you press your hand to the ground, a map lights up in your brain, not in your fingers, but in a folded ridge of your cortex called the somatosensory strip. That each inch of skin has its own home, but the map is not fair. Your back, your thigh, these cover wide ground, yet occupy a modest corner. Your lips, your fingertips, though small, are vast territories in the brain. It is not a map of size. It is a map of importance. And so, the brain's body is a little strange, a distorted figure called the homunculus, with swollen hands, giant lips, tiny knees. It is how your mind prioritizes the world. Touch is fast. Signals rush from skin to spine to brain in fractions of seconds. But not all touch is pain or pressure. Some touch is emotional. There are special nerve fibers, see tactile afferents, that respond best to gentle social touch. They carry no urgency. They move slowly, a hand on your shoulder, the mother stroking a child. These touches are not just felt, they are processed in the insula where feelings live. The body remembers kindness, not as a concept, but as a physical warmth under the skin. And the skin is not just a sensor, it is also a protector. It keeps the world out until you choose to let it in. But the brain, in its wisdom, sometimes confuses the signals. In conditions like phantom limb pain, touch is felt in a hand that is no longer there. The map in the brain remains, even when the body does not. Memory and sensation lead together. Some touches never quite become conscious. The constant pressure of your clothes, the weight of your body against the bed. Your brain learns to quiet these sounds, to keep the signal clean. Only what changes is noticed. Stillness is ignored. Change is heard. That is why a sudden breeze on bare skin feels louder than a heavy coat you've worn all day. Your touch also touches inward. The sensations from your stomach, your lungs, your heartbeat. These are called interoception. Your brain knows your blood is warm, your breath is shallow, your bladder is full. It gathers a constant stream from inside. Even the rhythm of your gut is recorded. This inner sensing is what lets you feel off before you know why. It is the quiet signal that precedes emotion, the prelude to mood. Touch connects us to one another, not just biologically, but socially. Infants held develop differently than those left untouched. Touch is trust. Touch is comfort. Touch is presence. And so much of love, real human love, requires no words, only warmth, only nearness. A hand held is a nervous system reaching for another. Yet we often forget that we are never truly not touching. Even in stillness, air presses on your skin. Your feet kiss the floor. Your lungs touch the air as it moves in and out. The body is never separate, only selectively aware. You live in a web of sensation that flickers and fades and returns. The world never truly leaves you. You are its surface, its echo, its open door. And your brain, strange and dreaming, can make the world feel close even when it isn't. Have you ever felt your phone buzz when it didn't? Or thought someone brushed your hair when no one did? Touch is not only external, it is also a dance with expectation, a projection of attention. Sometimes the body guesses, and sometimes those guesses feel real. But even false touch reveals something true, that we are made to connect, to sense, to interpret even the smallest pressure as meaning. You are a surface of awareness, a living boundary between matter and mind. And in that space, in that skin, life begins to speak. So tonight, as you rest, as your weight settles into the bed, as the sheets press softly against your limbs, notice the contact, not just of things, but of being, how the world gently meets you where you are, how it speaks without sound, how your body listens without trying. And somewhere beneath that stillness, somewhere quiet and slow, another system begins to stir. There is a signal your body sends only when it must, not to punish, but to protect. It arrives as a flicker, a pulse, a cry in the quiet tissues. It's the language of injury, of edges, of too much. It is pain, the body's candlelight, a soft and flickering fire that says, notice this, tend to this. You are still alive. You feel it before you can name it. Before your mind can say, I am hurt, your body already knows. Pain moves fast when it needs to, and sometimes it moves slow. There are two types of messengers racing from skin to spine. One is sharp, like lightning, quick, bright, specific. It travels on thin, myelinated fibers, the E-delta fibers. It's the sting of a pinprick, the snap of heat, the sudden jolt of stepping on glass. The other is slower, a deep, dull ache that blooms like thunder after the strike. This is carried on unmyelinated C fibers, soft as shadows, slow as sadness. It's the throb of a bruise after the fall, the long, aching echo that lingers. Both reach the spinal cord, that slender root of you, and from there they speak upward to the brainstem, to the thalamus, to the somatosensory cortex, where you first feel where it is and how strong. But pain is more than signal, it is story. Because pain does not only say, "You are hurt," it also asks, "What does this mean to you?" So the message passes through your insula, which knows your inner world, through the amygdala, which knows fear, and the anterior cingulate cortex, which holds the weight of emotion. The same injury can feel different depending on your memory, your mood, your expectation. Pain is not only in the wound, it is also in the witness. And sometimes pain arrives when nothing is broken. The nervous system can misfire or refuse to turn off. Pain that outlasts its cause. Pain with no visible origin. This is chronic pain, the stubborn ember that keeps glowing long after the fire is gone. In these moments, the brain becomes part of the loop. The map of pain etches itself into the circuits that once were calm. The body becomes wary of its own whispers. There are gates within your spine, not metal, but biological gates, which decide what pain reaches the brain. This is the gate control theory. If a strong signal of pain arrives, but nearby nerves send other signals, touch, vibration, the gates may close. It's why you rub a stubbed toe, why gentle pressure soothes a cramp. Touch and pain compete for passage, and sometimes comfort wins. Your brain, too, can open or close these gates. Fear, stress, sadness, they open the gates wider. Distraction, laughter, safety, they narrow the channel. Pain is not a fixed thing. It is a conversation between tissue and thought, between nerves and mood, between what is real and what is remembered. There are people born without pain. Their condition is rare. Congenital insensitivity to pain, to never feel a burn, to never wince from pressure. It may sound like a gift, but it is not. These people bite their tongues while chewing, break bones without knowing. They must watch their bodies with constant attention, because pain, though harsh, is also a light that guides. It teaches caution. It teaches care. It says, this is where you end. This is where damage begins. Pain can move from one place to another. Referred pain, like a heart attack that hurts the arm, or a liver that aches in the shoulder. The body's wiring is not always clean. Signals cross, maps blur, and pain becomes a riddle to interpret, a language that must be read through context and clues. There is also empathy for pain. When you see someone else get hurt, your brain lights up in some of the same places as if it were your own. The mirror neurons reflect not just action, but suffering. It's why a child's cry makes your heart wince. Pain is contagious, but not as harm as connection. You hurt when others hurt. You feel what you haven't touched. And then there are moments when pain disappears. Not because the body is healed, but because the brain shifts. In moments of great fear, pain is delayed. In war, in crisis, in emergency, the chemicals, endorphins, natural opiates flood the brain, dulling the message. So you can run or fight or survive. Pain waits because survival matters more. Later, it returns, but only when you are safe enough to feel. There are other ways we soothe pain, not just with drugs, but with meaning. Music, company, ritual, faith. Belief itself can shift your thresholds. The placebo effect is not fake. It is the body responding to expectation, releasing relief from within. The mind becomes medicine. The thought becomes balm. So now, as you lie still, remember that pain, even when silent, shapes the path of your mind. It sculpts the brain. It rewires attention. It alters memory. But pain does not always harm. Pain can also mark where healing begins. It is the flicker that makes you pause, adjust, breathe, and wait. It is the whisper that says, "You matter. You are here. You are not numb." And in the quiet flickering of this inner flame, you learn to listen to what's tender, what's raw, what's human. And when pain fades, when the nerves settle and the breath deepens, what remains is sensitivity, not weakness, but awareness, not fear, but presence. You feel because you're alive, and you listen because you felt. There are moments that never leave you, not because you hold them, but because they hold you. Ascend, and suddenly you're 10 again. A melody and a face returns that you haven't seen in years. The mind doesn't keep time. It keeps shapes, folds in the brain, creases in thought, echoes where silence once lived. Memory is not a recording. It is not a shelf of still images. It is a living structure, growing, fading, reshaping itself each time you remember. Memory is a shape that stays, even as everything else changes. In the center of your brain, two curves rest like sea horses in the dark. These are the hippocampi, named for their shape and vital for their role. They are not where memory lives, but they are where it learns to breathe. When something matters, when something feels new, or strange, or beautiful, the hippocampus lights up, taking note of the time, the smell, the color of the air. It weaves context into sensation, tags it, marks it, sends it forward to deeper storage. Without it, you might still feel, but you wouldn't recall. There was a man once, patient HM, who lived without a working hippocampus. After surgery to stop his seizures, he could no longer form new memories. Each moment was now. Every handshake was the first. He could still speak, still think, even still learn in strange hidden ways. But he was caught in an eternal present, the past always slipping like water through open fingers. His life became a testament to what memory does and what it means to lose it. Your memories are not all alike. Some are short, held for seconds, then gone. This is working memory, the scratch pad of thought, what you hold in mind as you do a task, solve a problem, finish a sentence. Then there is short-term memory, a temporary stage, like breath held just before diving. And then there is long-term memory, not a place, but a process. A memory becomes long-term, not by being important, but by being repeated, emotional, or meaningful. You remember what changed you. You remember what mattered. Memories aren't stored in one spot. They're scattered across the brain, like seeds in a field. The sound of a voice in the auditory cortex, the curve of a face in the visual centers, the emotion in the amygdala, the timeline in the prefrontal cortex. To remember is to reassemble, and each time you do, you change it. Memory is not fixed. It is rewritten with every recall, like drawing on soft clay. The shape deepens, but so do the fingerprints. There are memories you keep on purpose, and ones that keep you. This is the difference between explicit and implicit memory. You know, explicit memory, facts, stories, birthdays. These you name, you summon. But implicit memory is quieter. The way you ride a bike, the feeling of safety around a familiar voice, the tightening in your chest when the past echoes. It's memory without words. It shapes behavior from beneath thought. Memories can be vivid and still false because memory is not a camera. It is reconstruction, and suggestion can color the bricks you lay. Studies show how easily details shift, how a word can change a car crash from a bump to a smash. Memory is loyal to meaning more than fact. What you remember may not be what happened, but what your mind understood it to be. Sleep is memory's secret ally. In deep slumber, your brain replays the day's moments, strengthening some, erasing others. The slow wave sleep restores the files. The REM sleep links emotion to memory. You dream your experiences into permanence. You file while unconscious, which is why a good night's sleep is not laziness, but memory's most honest labor. Emotion is the ink that stains deepest. The more intense the feeling, the more vivid the memory. This is the work of the amygdala, the brain's emotional sentinel. It watches the world for fear, for wonder, for joy. When the stakes are high, it tags the moment. This matters. Remember this. That's why you remember where you were when the news broke, or when someone left, or when you first heard your name spoken with love. But too much emotion can blur memory too. Trauma can freeze memory, locking moments into fragmented flashes, unable to thread into coherent story. The brain may bury what it cannot bear, or it may relive the wound again and again, uninvited. In PTSD, the memory loops, not as narrative, as eruption. There is healing, but it is slow, and it often begins with giving memory a voice that feels safe. You also forget, and forgetting is not failure, it is wisdom. Your brain cannot keep everything. It trims, it lets go, it prunes. Like a tree in winter, it sheds to survive. You forget what doesn't connect. You forget what doesn't repeat. You forget what no longer fits your sense of self. Memory is not just what you keep, it is what you release. And there is more. The mystery of reconsolidation. Every time you remember, you open the memory. And in those moments, it is malleable. This is how old memories can change meaning. How you can revisit a painful time and find a different truth inside it. Not denial, not deletion, but a softer light on the same scene. You are not the same person who first remembered, and memory evolves with you. There is, too, the beauty of collective memory. Families, cultures, nations remember through story. What one person forgets, another holds. You are part of a larger mind, a memory made of many songs, stories, rituals, photographs. These are how we stitch memory into time. They are how we remain after we are gone. So now, as you lie still with memories floating near, know this: you are not a vault. You are not a library. You are a sea of shifting shapes, each one a ripple from who you've been, what you've loved, what you feared. You remember because you felt. You remember because you are still becoming. And every memory you carry is a doorway into your shape. There is a wind that rises in you before you know its name. Pull in the chest, a shift behind the eyes, a stirring that says yes or no, or maybe just stay close. You call it emotion, but it's more than feeling. It's orientation, a compass inside the flesh, a way the body learns to lean before the mind decides what direction to take. Emotion is not weakness. It is not noise. It is guidance. Long before you spoke, you felt the cold ache of hunger, the warm safety of arms, the spark of surprise at the rattle's sound. Your brain learned the world through the rise and fall of sensation, fear, delight, curiosity, grief. And these feelings were not decorations on thought. They were the architects of thought. Emotion came first. It shaped how you learned. It sculpted what became memory, choice, identity. Deep in your brain, near its core, lies a structure shaped like an almond, the amygdala. This small cluster is one of your oldest sentinels. It detects danger, tags importance, triggers response. When a loud sound cracks the air, your amygdala flares before you know what it was. When you glimpse a loved one's face, it stirs recognition faster than language can follow. It is the emotional smoke alarm. Sensitive, fast, often right, sometimes wrong, and it doesn't wait for permission. Emotion floods the body as much as the brain. The heart pounds, the breath tightens, the skin chills. This is the work of the autonomic nervous system, divided into two partners: the sympathetic branch, which prepares you, fight, flight, freeze, and the parasympathetic, which soothes, rest, digest, mend. Each emotion is a conversation between these two currents. Fear speeds you up, grief slows you down, joy balances between them, alive but at peace. You feel emotion because your body moves through it. But emotion is not all alarm and instinct. Insula, tucked deep in the cortex, gathers signals from the gut, the lungs, the heart. It tells the brain how the body feels and what that might mean. It's a mirror inward, a translator of internal storms. You may not always know why you're anxious, but your insula is reading the waves beneath awareness. A tiny heartbeat change, a shift in muscle tone. Your brain listens closely and builds the feeling you call emotion. Not all feelings are raw. The prefrontal cortex, especially on the left and right, adds nuance. It regulates. It reflects. It says, I am angry, but I can wait. Or, this feels familiar and safe. This part of the brain lets you hold emotion without being swept away. It helps you name it, frame it, choose your response. It is the difference between a reflex and a decision, between drowning in feeling and understanding what it wants to teach. But not all emotions come with clarity. You can feel many things at once: bittersweetness, nervous hope, gentle rage. The brain doesn't limit you to labels. It allows ambiguity, overlap, complex color, and over time, your emotional compass grows subtler. The child feels anger or sadness. The adult feels resentment braided with grief, joy tinged with fear. This richness is not confusion. It is wisdom. Emotions guide behavior. You approach what feels good. You avoid what feels dangerous. And though society teaches restraint, suppression, stoicism, the brain evolved to feel first, think second. Even morality, your sense of right and wrong, is shaped by feeling. Empathy burns in the same circuits as physical pain. You flinch at another's suffering because the brain registers it as if it were yours. Emotion is the root of compassion. Even decision-making leans heavily on emotion. People with damage to emotional centers can still reason. They can still calculate, but they struggle to choose, because choice is not only logic, it is value, and value comes from what you feel, what matters, what moves you, what gives shape to preference. In this way, your compass is more than instinct. It is meaning itself. Emotions are social. They echo between faces, mirror in tone, vibrate across silence. You catch feelings from others: joy, worry, calm. This is emotional contagion. It happens through mirror neurons, body language, subtle shifts in voice. Your brain is always listening to the emotional weather around you. Even a baby can feel the mood in a room. Even animals sense tension or affection. You are never emotionally alone. But emotions can mislead too. They can rise from old wounds, ghosts of stories you no longer live in. A harmless face might trigger unease, not because of who they are, but because of what they remind you of. This is the shadow side of the compass. It remembers danger, even when the map has changed. But knowing this gives you power. You can pause. You can examine the signal. You can ask, is this current or is this history? Emotional intelligence is not the absence of emotion. It is the art of recognizing it, holding it, responding with care. It is not always about calming down. Sometimes it's about listening to the fire within. Grief wants to be seen. Anger wants to protect. Joy wants to be shared. Every feeling is a message. And when you stop fighting them, they stop shouting. They begin to whisper. Some feelings stay unnamed. They rise in music, in color, in dreams. They slip between words. That longing you can't define. That stillness in a forest that makes you ache. These two are part of the compass. They may not point north, but they point inward, toward self, toward mystery, toward the map you are still drawing. And so, as you drift tonight, with quiet signals moving beneath your ribs, know this: your emotions are not wild storms to tame. They are stars guiding you through the dark. They do not always explain, but they always mean something. And if you follow gently, they will take you somewhere honest, somewhere true. When the world goes dim and your eyes close like slow, tender curtains, another painter stirs behind your forehead. It does not wait for light. It does not need your will. It dreams in strokes of memory, inked not on paper, but in pulses, in rhythm, in waves of soft electric snow. You sleep, but something inside remains awake, not watching the room, but watching the self. The mind begins to whisper stories back to itself, mixing truth and invention into seamless fog. A tiger wears your brother's voice. Your old home has no walls. You walk through rain that never touches you. Strange, impossible, utterly convincing, and entirely internal. Is dreaming. Your brain never truly turns off. Even in sleep, it glows with activity. But in dreams, the usual guards are relaxed. The gatekeepers of logic, the judges of time, step quietly aside, and the mind begins to wander without tether, not randomly, but with a rhythm all its own. The stage for this theater is REM sleep, rapid eye movement. During REM, your eyes dart beneath their lids. Your breathing becomes shallow and your muscles fall into stillness. The cortex lights up bright as day, especially the visual areas, the emotional centers, and memory zones. But the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, Your inner voice of reason goes dim. That's why your dream self accepts the absurd. Why it does not ask, does this make sense? It simply experiences. Dreams are not nonsense. They may appear wild, but they are crafted from meaning, from fragments of your day, your fears, your hopes, your grief. The brain is stitching together a kind of truth beyond logic, an emotional map in metaphor. The dream is not about the dog that chased you, but about the feeling you couldn't name yesterday afternoon. Neuroscientists have studied this mystery with quiet awe. They've watched the sleeping brain in scanners, measured the hum of dreamlike waves. In REM sleep, the limbic system, the seat of feeling, is highly active. The amygdala flares. The hippocampus hums. The brain is revisiting memory with emotion as its lens. But without your conscious filter, images rearrange. Like ink in water, memories bleed into each other. The classroom becomes an ocean. Your mother wears a stranger's face, and yet you know what it means, even if you don't. Why do we dream? No one is certain, but theories bloom like stars. Some say is rehearsal, a simulation to prepare for fear, for threat, for uncertainty. Sandbox for survival. Others see it as a kind of emotional therapy where trauma is softened, memories refiled, tangles slowly untied through symbolic play. Still others suggest dreams are creativity at work, a mind making new links from old parts, innovation wearing the mask of madness. Sometimes a dream shows you something you didn't know you already knew. The double helix, the periodic table, the structure of benzene. Each of these came to a dreaming mind, not in lecture halls, but in sleep, because sleep does not erase thinking, it deepens it. While you drift, the brain reorganizes, memories consolidate, connections form, insights bloom, and dreams are the ink of this silent writing. Children dream more. Their REM stages are longer, more vivid, more frequent. The developing brain needs dream time to shape itself, to practice fear, to absorb language, to experiment with selfhood. In some sense, childhood is one long, waking dream, and through it, the brain learns who it is. But even adults rely on dreams. Deprive someone of REM, and the mind begins to fray. Memory suffers, mood collapses, hallucinations begin to seep in. The dream will not be denied. If suppressed, it returns stronger, a phenomenon known as REM rebound. The brain insists on its night work, even if the conscious self does not understand what it's doing. And sometimes the dream becomes lucid. You realize you are dreaming, and within that awareness, you can shape the dream. Fly, swim through stars, speak to lost ones. In this lucid state, you become both actor and director. The prefrontal cortex reawakens just enough to grant volition without breaking the spell. It's a delicate balance, waking thought in a dreaming world, Not all dreams are kind. Nightmares can be sharp, visceral, terrifying, but even they serve a purpose. They may expose what you avoid, give form to what hurts. They bring into the open what lies too deep to say aloud. And when met with gentleness, even fear can transform. Nightmares are not betrayals. They are cries for attention. Dreams do not obey the brain's boundaries. They borrow voices, blend genders, erase years. The dream self is fluid, timeless, free. In dreams, you are young again. You are older than you've ever been. You are yourself, and sometimes someone else entirely. This is not confusion. This is possibility. The mind testing versions, exploring alternate lines of your story. Not to decide who you are, but to remind you you are never only one thing. And then the dream fades like smoke from a candle in wind. The alarm hums. The light returns. The conscious mind takes back the stage. And yet, some part of you remembers. The feeling lingers. Color, a gesture, single word you never said aloud. The dream leaves its ink in your waking day, not always as image, but as shift, in emotion, in insight, in self. So tonight, when you close your eyes again, know this: the mind has its own tide. It goes in, it goes deep, and while you rest, it will paint, it will mend, it will wander the vast interior in quiet illumination. You may not recall it all, but it is part of you. Dreaming, you are still becoming, even long after the danger has passed. Your body may still brace for the blow, not because it chooses to, but because it remembers, not in words, but in sensation, in breath that quickens without cause, in shoulders that tighten at a voice's tone, in sleep that flees for no clear reason. This is the memory of the nervous system. It keeps stories the conscious mind may forget. You have two minds woven into one. The thinking mind, the one that speaks, plans, narrates, and the sensing mind, older, deeper, rooted in pulse and pattern. When something overwhelms you, a car crash, a scream, a betrayal, a loss, this older mind doesn't ask questions, it reacts. And sometimes that reaction gets stuck like a loop, a song that won't end. The body keeps playing what it learned in fear. Trauma is not only what happens to you, it is also what happens inside you in response. It's when your nervous system faces more than it can handle, too fast, too much, too soon, and cannot return to baseline. The heart keeps pounding. The muscles keep clenching. The breath stays shallow, even when the danger is gone. This is not weakness. This is survival working overtime. Your brain has a sentinel, a watchtower. It's called the amygdala, small, almond-shaped, near the base of the brain. It scans constantly for threat. It cannot tell time. It doesn't distinguish between a memory and a moment. When it sees something that resembles the past wound, a smell, a flash of color, a sound. It rings the alarm. The hypothalamus listens. The adrenal glands respond. Cortisol rises. The body readies for battle, even if you are safe in bed. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the rational voice, the calming presence, often shuts down in moments of reactivation. The part of you that could say, it's not happening anymore, goes quiet. That's why trauma can feel timeless, because the body does not speak in years. It speaks in triggers, in heartbeats, in sweat. It remembers in the language of sensation. The nervous system isn't being difficult. It is being protective. After trauma, your inner wiring prioritizes safety over subtlety. It would rather overreact than miss the warning sign. Again, the smoke alarm blares at burnt toast, not because it's broken, but because it once failed to protect you in time. But what's remarkable about the nervous system is that it can learn. Even after trauma, the system is not frozen forever. It can be rewired, not erased, but repatterned slowly, gently, with safety and repetition, through breath, through grounding, through presence, through learning that not every sound is danger, not every raised voice means harm. Therapies rooted in the body recognize this. Somatic experiencing, EMDR, trauma-informed yoga, neurofeedback, all help the nervous system complete the stress cycle that was interrupted. They help the body finish what it began, but never had the chance to resolve. They give the inner animal a place to shake, cry, settle, not by talking it through, but by sensing it through. In animals, this is visible. A deer escapes a predator, and afterward, it shakes. Its whole body trembles until the surge passes. Then, it moves on. But humans, we often override this natural discharge. We tighten. We swallow the sob. We hold the breath. We push forward, and the tension remains. Stored. The vagus nerve plays a central role in this remembering and in this healing. It runs from brainstem to gut to lungs to heart. It controls the parasympathetic system, your body's calm switch. When trauma locks you into fight or flight, the vagus nerve can help bring you back into rest and digest through deep exhale, through humming, through gentle touch, through connection. Because safety is not just a condition, it is a state of the nervous system. Trauma does not live only in the past. It echoes in the present until met with new experience. A safe hand, a quiet room, a voice that says, "You're okay now." These moments rewire old circuits. Bit by bit, the system learns a new rhythm. It learns how to come down from the ledge. It learns how to stay. And memory itself is not fixed. Each time you recall a memory, your brain rewrites it a little. This is called reconsolidation. It means you're not trapped by the past. The nervous system can revisit without reliving. with support, with grounding. You can update what the body believes. I'm still there becomes I was there, and now I am here. Even in silence, the body holds the timeline. You tremble before a meeting, a clench before sleep, a flinch at kindness. But healing is not about forgetting. It is about befriending the body's wisdom, listening, letting it show you where it still hurts, and gently offering new signals. Safe now, here now, loved now, over and over, until the body believes it. You may never remember the moment the shift began, but one day you'll notice your breath arrives without effort. The sound that once stung now passes by like wind. The feeling that once overwhelmed now arises, then softens, and you realize the nervous system, too, has learned something new. It remembers pain, but it can also remember peace. There's a mind that does not speak in thoughts, but in churns, in pulses, in waves that roll beneath your ribs. It hums quietly below the dialogue of your brain, an ancient system without words, but rich in wisdom. This is your gut, and within it lives a second brain, not a metaphor, not a poetic stretch, but a true neural network of its own making. The enteric nervous system, a vast web of neurons threaded through the lining of your digestive tract. More than 100 million neurons, more than in your spinal cord. It stretches from esophagus to colon, carrying signals that don't ask your brain for permission. It listens to your inner world, to acidity, to stretch, to fullness, and speaks in chemicals and contractions. It regulates digestion, yes, but also emotion, perception, even decision-making. You felt it, that twist in your belly before bad news, that flutter before you speak your truth. A gut feeling isn't mystical, it's neural. A language built in muscle and mucus, in serotonin and slow waves. It's the murmur of the body responding before the brain can explain. Your gut's brain develops from the same tissue as your central nervous system. In the womb, as your brain grows upward, another system grows downward, a mirror thread forming in the belly. They stay connected forever. Through the vagus nerve, they whisper constantly to each other, not just from brain to gut, but more often from gut to brain. Your stomach is not a passive organ. It's a storyteller. And what stories it tells? The gut releases over 90% of your serotonin. This neurotransmitter, often tied to mood, doesn't just live in the head. It lives in the lining of your intestines. A mood molecule born in the darker corridors of digestion. When your gut is inflamed, your thoughts may tighten. When your microbiome is imbalanced, your mind may fog. An anxious gut breeds an anxious brain. A calm belly sets the tone for a calm mind. Inside your gut, trillions of microbes sing in harmony or in chaos. This is the microbiome. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, all living in you. with you as part of you. They digest your food. They make vitamins. They modulate inflammation. And they send messages along the vagus superhighway straight into your mind. Some bacteria even make GABA, a calming neurotransmitter. Others influence dopamine. Others affect cortisol. When we feed our gut well, with fiber, with variety, with kindness, we nourish our emotional resilience. Your second brain doesn't think in words, but it feels with remarkable clarity. It knows before you do when something is off, long before the mind can rationalize. The gut can register a shift in the wind, that subtle discomfort in a room, that gentle unease with a stranger. It may not offer a full sentence, but it gives you a signal. And if you learn to listen without panic, it becomes a quiet compass. Trauma affects the gut as deeply as it does the heart. The microbiome shifts. The intestines grow reactive. The stomach becomes tight. Food becomes not just fuel, but battlefield. Many who live with anxiety know the churn, the nausea, the emptiness that arrives even when you're full. This is not imagined. The gut is wired to respond to emotional threat, and it also holds the potential to anchor you again. Breathing slowly stimulates the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve tells the gut, it's safe now. You can rest. The gut softens. The breath deepens, and the feedback returns upward. Calm return to the brain. This cycle is ancient, regenerative, available not through control, but through awareness. Even the rhythm of digestion follows a wave, known as the migrating motor complex. It sweeps through the gut in pulses every 90 minutes, like a gentle tide cleaning the shores, interrupted by stress, nourished by peace, a quiet that shapes your inner timing. We are rhythmic beings, in heartbeat, in breath, in gut motility. And when we live out of sync, the body knows. The gut speaks up. Food, too, is memory. Certain flavors transport you to childhood kitchens, to past joys, to old grief, because the gut remembers with feeling. The smells, the textures, the rituals of eating, they are stored in both brains. To eat is to feel. To digest is to process more than just nutrients. There are neurons that line your intestines like little sentries. They fire when stretched. They respond to pressure. They shape how full you feel, how safe you feel, how settled. They influence not just what you eat, but how you think afterward. This is why the gut is not just a digestive organ, but an emotional one. When it is neglected, the mind suffers. When it is supported, the mind brightens. Your second brain may not write poetry, but it understands what it is to be overwhelmed, to protect, to withdraw, to ache. And it also knows what it is to recover, to rebuild, to digest and start again. Healing often begins here, not in thought, but in sensation. A full breath, a gentle meal, a softening, of the center. So when your mind feels foggy, when your emotions surge, pause. Breathe low into the belly. Ask what your gut knows, what it's holding, what it's trying to say, and listen to this ancient voice, this brain that wraps your middle in feeling and fire. It may not answer in words, but it will respond with truth. There is a thread woven through your body, so quiet you hardly know it's there. Yet without it, your calm would vanish. It hums behind your breath, beneath your heartbeat, gently guiding your inner weather. It is called vagus, from the Latin for wanderer, and that's exactly what it is. A wandering nerve that drifts down from your brainstem like a gentle stream, weaving through your throat, your lungs, your heart, your belly. It touches everything and listens to everything. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve in your body. It begins behind your ears, deep in your brainstem, and meanders downward, twisting through the core of you like a soft vine. And yet, you rarely hear about it. It doesn't shout. It doesn't command. It soothes. It is the main highway of the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of your body that whispers, "Slow down now. You are safe." It slows your heart rate, deepens your breath, stimulates digestion, and eases inflammation. It is the nerve of rest, of restoration, of recovery. Most nerves carry messages outward, from brain to body, but the vagus mostly listens. Around 80% of its fibers are afferent. They carry information inward from your organs to your brain, like roots sending word of soil and sunlight back to the tree. It tells your brain what your heart is doing, what your lungs are sensing, what your gut is feeling. It builds your sense of self, not as a thought, but as a felt truth. And here's the miracle. You can touch it with breath. When you breathe slowly, with your exhale longer than your inhale, the vagus nerve awakens. It registers the rhythm. It sends signals upward. It tells your brain things are okay, and the brain listens. It lowers cortisol. It releases calm. It shifts your state from alert to relaxed. This is the heart of every meditation, every moment of stillness, every deep sigh. The vagus is listening. It even shapes your voice. Tiny branches of the vagus reach into your vocal cords. When you hum, when you chant, when you speak softly, you stimulate this ancient pathway. This is why singing calms you, why a lullaby soothes a child, why certain tones feel like safety. Your body knows. Your nerve responds. The tone becomes a signal, not just to others, but to yourself. And it doesn't stop there. The vagus touches your heart. It slows its beating when danger passes. It invites stillness after fear. A strong vagal tone means your heart can shift gracefully from racing to resting, from action to peace. It's like emotional agility written in nerve impulses. People with strong vagal tone tend to recover faster from stress. They handle challenge with more calm. Their bodies return to baseline with ease. This isn't just personality, it's physiology. But Vegas doesn't work alone. It listens to the world through your senses, through touch, through sound, through eye contact. Polyvagal theory, developed by Stephen Porges, suggests we have multiple nervous system states and that the vagus helps navigate between them. When you feel truly safe, you enter what's called the ventral vagal state, a place of connection, curiosity, and calm. This is the state where you feel most human, able to love, to create, to rest. But when safety vanishes, the body retreats. It climbs up into fight or flight, or collapses downward into freeze. Your vagus is the ladder between these states. It's how you climb back into the light. This wandering nerve also weaves through your gut. It senses fullness, comfort, imbalance. It listens to the microbiome and in turn influences your mood, your clarity, your sleep. Remember, more messages go from gut to brain, then brain to gut. And the vagus is the bridge. When your gut is calm, your thoughts soften. When your stomach churns, your mind may race. A silent conversation flows beneath your awareness, minute by minute. And yet, trauma can disrupt the vagus. Long-term stress, abuse, neglect, they tighten its flow. They silence its song. The nerve becomes dull. The signals confused. The body forgets how to come back to safety. That's why healing is often about reawakening the vagus with breath, with rhythm, with stillness. We are not only healed through words, we are healed through nervous system listening. You can feel the vagus in small things. The deep exhale after a long day, the hum of your lips as you make tea, the grounding weight of a hand on your chest. These aren't habits. They are signals. They're messages to your inner wanderer, saying, "Come home now. The danger has passed." The vagus also explains why social safety matters so deeply. When we look into a kind face, hear a soft voice, receive a warm touch, our vagus activates. We are mammals. Connection is our regulation. The nervous system is not just individual, it's communal. We co-regulate. We calm each other without words. The vagus is how we know we are not alone. So, tonight, as you lie still, tune in. Place your hand just below your ribs. Let your breath lengthen. Let your exhale linger. Let the wandering nerve feel your awareness. You don't have to force anything. The vagus responds best to gentleness. Let your breath be the invitation. Let your body remember softness. Let this quiet highway remind your mind that you are safe. You lie down, the weight of the day settling into your bones. But your brain, quiet as it may seem, does not sleep in the way you do. It rewires, it revises, it rebuilds. And that is neuroplasticity, the gentle truth that you are not finished, not fixed, not frozen in who you were this morning or last year or as a child. You are clay, still soft beneath the breath of thought. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change itself, not just in childhood, though it is brightest there, but throughout your life. Connections between neurons strengthen with use, fade with disuse, shift with attention, reshape with experience. It is your mind sculpting its own structure, moment by moment. You think, and your brain bends. You feel, and it folds. You act, and the architecture alters. Like a city that grows not from blueprints, but from every footstep, every light that turns on, every whisper in the dark. Once, scientists thought the adult brain was static, that after childhood, the doors of change were mostly closed. But now we know the brain never stops learning, rewiring, reweaving its own patterns. After injury, a new region can learn an old function. After trauma, a pathway can dim but not disappear. With repetition, a faint trail can become a road. And every night, you participate in this, not by effort, but by rest. Sleep is when the sculptor gets to work. Each night, your brain reviews the day, like a librarian, shelving memories, discarding duplicates, binding moments into meaning. Synapses that were fired repeatedly are strengthened. Ones unused are trimmed back, not as punishment, but as pruning, like a gardener who removes the clutter so that growth can breathe. This is called synaptic homeostasis, and it happens while you dream. Even dreams, strange as they are part of plasticity. The surreal worlds you wander in sleep may help integrate disparate memories, loosen stuck emotions, and test out possibilities your waking brain avoids. Your brain plays while you rest, and in that play, new connections are formed, flexible, fragile, but full of potential. Neuroplasticity is not just memory, it is movement, emotion, language, creativity, recovery. It is why a stroke victim can relearn how to speak, why an amputee can retrain the brain to quiet phantom pain, why someone with anxiety can reshape the loops that hold them captive. It is the biology of hope, the science of second chances. It says, you are not your patterns. You are your potential to pattern differently. Of course, not all change is easy or pleasant. Plasticity is neutral. It can build or reinforce or distort. The brain will wire itself according to what it is fed, be it beauty or fear, truth or trauma. If you repeat a thought often enough, even a false one, the brain will strengthen that loop. If you dwell in worry, if you ruminate, the neural tracks grow deeper until they become default. Plasticity doesn't ask what is helpful. It simply adapts, which is why awareness matters. You can't control every signal your brain receives, but you can choose some of the rhythms you return to. You can lean into music that calms, stories that lift, habits that nourish, pauses that soften the nervous system enough to allow for rewiring. Even the act of noticing, of becoming the witness, is a change. A new neural circuit begins to hum, and repetition is how it lasts. The brain learns, not from force, but from frequency. Single thought may come and go, but repeated thoughts shape highways. A single meditation may soothe, but a steady practice reshapes the mind. This is the rule of long learning. The more a circuit fires, the more easily it fires. What you return to becomes you, like a footpath through wild grass. Walk it enough, and it becomes a trail. Neuroplasticity is not just personal. Relationships shape it. Environment sculpts it. Language and touch mold your brain from birth. When someone speaks to you with gentleness, your neurons register the safety. When you're held, comforted, understood, new maps form. And when you're hurt, ignored, or shamed, others form too. This is how we become the stories we live inside. But stories can be rewritten, not erased, but revised. You do not forget who you were. You expand who you are. Even movement matters. When you learn a new skill, to dance, to knit, to balance, your brain changes. It builds new maps. Motor neurons refine their signals. Glial cells shift their support. Myelin wraps the pathways you use most. Every gesture is memory in motion. The brain is not just in your head. It is embodied, lived through limbs, felt in breath, expressed in motion. And here's something softer, more mysterious. The greatest periods of plasticity happen in stillness. In those quiet hours when your eyes close and the day recedes, your brain begins its nightly rewiring. It is silent, but not inactive. It is working on you the way a river works on stone, carving new curves, washing away the rigid, leaving you slightly different by morning. Not better, not worse, just changed. And this too is a kind of grace, because it means you are not bound to your past circuitry. Your nervous system can heal. Your mind can grow, even without effort. Even while you rest, the change begins. You are not who you were yesterday, and you will not be the same tomorrow, because every night your brain becomes a loom, and your sleep is the thread of transformation. There's a quiet inside you that listens even when you do not speak. It does not judge, nor push, nor name, but it knows. It has known you since your first cry, since the hush between your breaths as an infant, since the flicker of your first fears, your first wonders. It lives in the folds of your brain, but speaks in silence. It waits in stillness, in the spaces between thoughts, in the softness between moments. This quiet, this watcher, is your interoception, your inward sense. And it is one of the oldest, most intimate parts of being human. Your brain is not only a collector of facts or a conductor of action, it is also a listener, tuned inward, like an old violin that plays itself in the dark. It hears your breath long before you notice it. It registers the tightness in your chest before you call it anxiety. It knows when you are safe and when something feels wrong, even if you cannot yet say why. This sensing, this knowing without words, comes from deep within, from a network woven through your heart, your lungs, your gut, your bloodstream. It is the nervous system turning inward to cradle you. The insular cortex is the listener, buried deep within the folds of your brain. It bridges thought and feeling. It gathers signals, heartbeat, muscle tension, temperature, thirst, and weaves them into meaning. When you say, I feel off, but cannot explain, it is the insula speaking. When you close your eyes and still know you are hungry or tired or soothed, this is your interoceptive sense at work. Not loud, not obvious, but essential. It is why a sudden fright can tighten your stomach, why joy can flush your skin with warmth, why grief can sit like weight on your chest. You are not imagining it. You are wired to feel yourself. This is the loop between brain and body, not only flowing outward, but circling back in. It is not separate from thought. It informs thought. It colors emotion, gives context to memory, shapes the stories you tell yourself about who you are. You are not only what happens to you, you are also how you feel it in your skin, your blood, your breath. Even in stillness, your body hums, a quiet orchestra of micro movements, chemical signals, nerve whispers. And you, without needing to command it, can feel that music. This is how you know when to rest, when to rise, when something is wrong, before any test detects it. This is not magic. This is biology turned inward in care. The body watching itself, not for control, but for companionship. Meditation, prayer, stillness. These are ancient rituals of returning inward. People across centuries have touched this inner quiet, noticing the breath as it moves, feeling the heartbeat as it slows. Science now sees that these practices strengthen interoceptive awareness, that listening to yourself is not indulgence, but wisdom. Children feel it instinctively. Before they learn to speak, they know what they need: to cry when hungry, to curl inward when frightened, to giggle in safety. You were once that child, and you still are. Under the layers of performance, of planning, of pretending, there is still a quiet that knows. It is this quiet that trauma disrupts. When something too big, too fast, too painful happens, the body may stop listening or listen too hard. The nervous system can freeze to protect you or become too alert, always scanning, always bracing. You may feel disconnected from your own heartbeats or overwhelmed by every twitch, every jolt, every flicker of adrenaline. This, too, is the nervous system trying to help, trying to hold you through danger. Healing is the gentle return to interoception, to feeling again, to listening without fear, to knowing in your body that you are safe. Sleep is part of this healing, not just escape, but reweaving. In sleep, your body tends to itself. The vagus nerve sighs, the heartbeat softens, the breath deepens, and the insular cortex still listens, tending to the garden of your sensations. It lets you dream, not only in pictures, but in feelings. A soft room, a warm presence, a familiar rhythm of peace. And so, tonight, as you lie here, know that your quiet is awake, that deep within your nervous system, there is a part that watches, that remembers, that cares. It is not your mind. In words, it is older than that. It is your body's language of being, not the stories you tell the world, not the hum beneath those stories. You do not need to do anything. Just listen gently to the silence inside you. It knows more than you think. It holds you without sound, and it carries forward everything you are, even in the dark, even in sleep. Thank you for walking beside me through the winding paths of your nervous system, through neurons that spark, glia that tend, memories that shape, and dreams that whisper. We have traced the quiet language of your own body, a soft symphony composed not in words, but in pulses, currents, breaths. You are not only a mind thinking in silence, but a living story written across tissues, across time, across night. The brain is not a machine. It is a moonlit forest, a trembling sea, a field that remembers the footsteps it once held. And inside you, there is a deep and knowing quiet, the kind that listens without asking, that heals without needing to speak. You are changing, always, gently, and that is not something to fear. That is the miracle of being alive. So now, as your thoughts settle like soft leaves on still water, know this. This series may close, but the wonder does not end here. You carry it with you in the way you breathe, in the way you feel, in the quiet that knows you best. This was the Dreamy Physicist, and I'm so grateful you came along. Good night.